Alright, welcome back to Moneytane, and I've got some more coins for you. Okay, we're in the second and last part of our Victorian coins now. And in 1887 we moved to the Golden Jubilee of Queen Victoria. And what happened was the coins and the portrait all got a redesign, for the high values at least. And in 1887 we got this brand new half crown. As you can see, this thing is really elaborate. And we also got the infamous Jubilee head. So with the Jubilee head, the young head disappeared on these coins. On silver in 1887, this one's a bit grubby, but this is 1887, and straight away you can see the quality of these coins has shot up astronomically from the extremely worn coins you saw in the last video. I'll put this on double just so I can get some better detail on these coins. As you can see, this coin is pretty good, but it's not the best. This is a high VF, because as you can see, if you look at the hair above Victoria's head, you can't see the individual strands, which stops it from being an EF coin. Still very nice. 1887 wasn't actually a big year, but coins from this year are very common because this is really when people first started putting aside souvenirs of the coins, and as a result you can buy an 1887 half crown quite cheaply. Okay, and 1888 I've actually got a better example. The novelty wore off quickly. Normally most 1888 coins are poor. This is probably a full EF easily. Now it's lost most of its luster, it hasn't been cleaned, as you can see. Just look at the amount of detail on that. This is a very intricate design, so you want something with a lot of detail, because I have got some worn ones coming up. The other good news is I've got every single half crown from this era, so no more gaps. Okay, so again, you can see there's a bit more hair detail on the queen there. 1889, okay, not every coin is a symphony in silver. This one is much more worn. I got it early on for melt. That's what a worn one looks like, and that's why generally you don't want to buy worn ones. This is probably good to VG. Again, absolutely, the detail goes quickly, and the queen, the other thing you notice about the Jubilee queen portraits is the more worn the queen is, the more stroppy she looks. And she actually wore that small crown because she apparently didn't like the big crown because it was too sore on her tiny head. So there you go. But again, it's almost comically small. 1890. Slightly better than 89. I think 89 might be the worst coin you actually see in this video. This one is still, it's not great, but you know, it's still a decent coin. I mean, I think I gave this one the grade of fine, and I actually did buy it from the UK. 1890 is a slightly more scarce date too. And again, as you can see, Victoria's looking a bit stroppier, but not quite as stroppy. Now 1891, this is actually a really high grade coin. It doesn't shine the most, but this is probably AU. This is really high grade, as you can see. And this is a coin which actually I got really cheap. I think I only paid about $100 for it. But look at that. You just see, you look at the frosted devices. This is a coin that's got almost no wear. I mean, you have to look at places like up here on the ampulla and on the crown, and just like all the little hatching lines and stuff. Look how sharp the belt is. And when you see Victoria in this high grade, I mean, she doesn't look beautiful, but she definitely looks a lot more radiant, wouldn't you agree? So this is, again, you know, it's not quite on the level of my 1826, but this is definitely a nice coin in my opinion, and easily it's one of my favourites. Because as you see, a lot of my higher grade coins from this era are cleaned. And again, I have no power over that. 1892 was the last year of the series. Again, this is not as nice, but it's still definitely an above average coin. 1892 was a more scarce year. So this coin is probably between fine and very fine. I mean, just enough of it survives to see the detail. You know, you definitely don't want to get them much more worn than this. I mean, this is about as low as you go if you want a quality item. And again, I mean, Victoria's she's looking alright. I mean, it's just at the stage where most of her facial detail is about to wear off, but it's hanging in there, basically. And then in 1893, we move across to the veiled head, and this is a much better portrait. Now, design-wise, tails design, I'm sorry, reverse, obverse, I always get them mixed up. I really love these designs. This was a guy called, I think it was Leonard Boehm. And these are regal. Now this one here looks really high grade. In fact, it's a cleaned high VF. Still a nice coin. This is actually one of the first ones I got. As you can see, it's very hard to get good pictures of these high grade pieces, so I'm going to have to go back to the drawing board with that. But the more worn coins always show up well. As you can see, this is really elaborate, but the overall design is not that much different from the Jubilees. And here's the veiled head. As you can see, it's a lot more. Well, she's wearing a full-size tiara for a start. I mean, she looks a bit more dignified and a little less stroppy. I mean, this is Definitely Mama Victoria of legend, and I get a little annoyed when I watch some videos of time lapses and they show like Queen Victoria's era in 1837 and they show this portrait of her. But anyway, of all the Victoria portraits, it's the most pleasing apart from the Gothic ones. K1894, this is another very high grade piece. This is easily EF, you know, probably cleaned like 50 years ago, if at all. Maybe it's not clean because you can see that tone is really growing on this piece. Well, they're looking around 94. That looks like someone's tried to clean the black off the coin. Again, that suggests it's probably another Auckland problem. This is a nice coin though, and as you can see, even though it's a bit grubby, you see there's a lot of detail on Victoria. I mean, there's hardly any wear on that at all. What grade did they give this piece? Yeah, so EF, about EF. I'm probably being a bit stingy there. I'll probably give it a full EF. Now, 1895, I mean, not every coin I said is a hit. This one's a bit more worn. It's still above average though. I think this one, I gave it a bare fine. As you can see, once you get below fine, you're going to be losing that shield pretty much. But still, it's not bad. I mean, it's probably more than your standard coin, and as you can see, as you go down the condition scale, I mean, Victoria starts to look a bit more worn. Yeah. Okay, the good news is coming up. I've got two 1896 and 97 are all very high grade. This is another very high grade coin. Because it was cleaned in the past, I got it very cheap. I think I paid around about $90 for this coin. But this is basically AU. I mean, you have to look bloody hard to find wear on this coin. See, even there, if you look at the orb, above the top of the crown, you can actually make out the lines on it. So that's how unworn this coin is. Just about every dot shines. I mean, look at the detail on the lines and the garter belt. I mean, there's rubbing. Most coins, those will be worn flat if they're there at all. And I think this is the large shield variety of 1896. And look at St. George and the Dragon at the bottom. There's virtually no wear on them at all. This coin it's definitely high AU. Some people who don't grade coins very well would say it's uncirculated. But there you can clearly see, like, if you look at that grey spot just on the veil next to the crown, that's either cleaning or very light rubbing. But that is an outstanding coin. Basically, it's one of my favourites. 1897, more of the same, but this one is blatantly cleaned would be a way to describe it. Or is it? I'm not actually that much of an expert looking at cleaning, and I can't understand why anybody would want to clean such high-grade coins. I can understand it's popular with, say, VF coins that look uncirculated, but not bloody AU ones. Again, this one is like, you could basically play a game called Let's Spot the Wear, because it just doesn't exist on these pieces. I mean, somebody held on to this coin for years. I mean, you look at that. I mean, my camera's going crazy now suggesting it's so good. It's a portrait of a living person. But that is just, wow. I better get on with actually filming this. I'm just basically salivating over my coins here. 1898. Now, this is an interesting coin because, again, it's almost as high grade as the other two, but it's very toned, as you can see. But if you look at it closely, the coin is still EF. You've only really got that sort of obvious wear on, again, on that jewel at the top of the crown, and all the details there, basically. It's an extremely nice coin, in my opinion, and it's an honest coin, too. I actually paid more for this in 96, 97, and none of the Jubilee or any of the veiled headgears are actually rare. Some of the Jubilees, like 1890 and 92, are less common, but none of these these old head one dates are rare. In fact, one of them, 1900, is actually very common with about 5 million pieces. But yeah, wow, I mean, if you see coins like this and they're cheap, get them, I say. I mean, that's just fantastic. You got a nice, this is definitely a coin that's probably spent most of its life in New Zealand. 1899, well, when I started buying half-crown coins, my first goal was, I didn't have much money back then, was just basically get as many dates as you can, and then as time goes on, just upgrade them when you can, basically. And a lot of these VF, EF, and AU coins I've been showing you, they would have been replaced by a coin that looked a lot like this. I mean, so basically I'll be upgrading. Now, this coin is very worn. I think I paid melt for it. This is VG. And as you can see, this is why you don't really want VG or anything less than fine for your, your veiled head era coinage, because it's so over-the-top Victorian detail that you really want the high-grade pieces that I've been showing you, pretty much. And again, it's not bad. I mean, it's probably closer to fine than VG, but still, it's a space filler, basically. Yeah. So what grade did I give this here? Good VG, so that's between VG and fine. And believe me, I've seen these things worn down to fair, to the point where you can't even make out the lettering. And when I say fair, I mean American fair. I don't mean British fair, which is really good VG. Fair as in like below about good. Okay, this is a VF coin. This has been really, really badly cleaned, and that's why I only paid $60 for it. But I still like it. I mean, it's still better than a really worn one. I mean, you can make out details. This is probably VG to high VG. But, you know, it just looks wrong in every way, basically. But still, as you can see, there's not much wear. It's probably closer to EF, really. What grade did I give it? Yeah, about EF, good VF. Okay, right, yeah. And then 1901, the last year of this coinage. Victoria died in January, but all the 1901 coins have her on it. Now, this one, again, this is what we call dipped cleaned, okay? It's EF, probably even better than EF, you know, but there's no way any coin has a natural luster like this after 120 years, so some clowns probably dipped it back in the 80s or 90s. I mean, none of these coins I've owned for more than 3 years, and I can assure you all, apart from putting them into these slips, I've done nothing to any of these coins, and I don't intend to. I bought it because realistically a lot of people wouldn't buy something like this because it's just so deceptive, but it is a genuine coin. It's just been dipped, unfortunately. 100 years or more, it's going to look like my 1899, so I'm not too worried. But I think in this case, the silver dips worked well, and as you can see, there's hardly any wear on this coin. So it's easily EF. Yeah, I've given it EF, but it's probably closer to AU. As you can see, you've got that hair detail. And that's the big thing you want to tell between a high VF and an EF coin is look at the hair under Victoria's crown on the Jubilees and Veiled. If you can see individual strands like this, you're dealing with a coin that's in EF or better condition. Whereas if you can't see the strands, like say of my 1893 here, no, that's not 1893, let me find it. Yeah, like here. See, in the VF, it's going to look like that. See how it looks nice, but look at the queens here. You notice how it's flat, basically. And for fine or lower, you won't even see the hairline. Now, just two more coins before I go. I know this has been quite a long video, but this is definitely my favourite era. In 1902, there was one of these bullion ships bringing coins to New Zealand. Actually went from London with a barrel full of coins for New Zealand, mostly 1900 half-crowns and some 1880s shillings and florins. What happened was it stopped in Sydney. It picked up some gold half-sovereigns minted there, but then it hit some rocks off the Three Kings Islands, and the boat sunk with about £15,000 worth of bullion silver coins for New Zealand. The half-sovereigns also, and what happened was it sat on the bottom of the sea for the next 65 years. A few were salvaged in 1902, but then what happened was it was basically found in 1967, and a group of people basically went there and harvested most of the silver coins and gold coins. But what had happened was most of the silver coins had basically accreted themselves to the rocks and had to be separated, and they sat under some pretty wild water for 65 years. Over the next 10 years, coins were brought up, and now they've been rescued and put on the market. Some are still in chunks, some were separated, and this is what's happened to them. And these are called Allingamite half-crowns. You can always tell them, you look at the staining on them. They're always 1900, and they always appear to be in around VF condition. Now, despite the raggy condition of these coins, they are extremely collectible here in New Zealand. If you go on our website, Trade Me, you will just see dozens of ads for Allingamite coins. And now the dealers, there's mainly dealers who bought most of them, and you can buy like a whole kg of them, where you can buy like a rock with like 50 half-crowns stuck to it or something. And they cost a lot of money, and I actually got these two I got them given to me as a free gift, basically, from a friend who I did some work for. But these are Allingamite coins, and they're quite nice, and when I get to my florins and shillings, I'll show you some more Allingamite coins, they're called. So if you want to look it up online, it's called the HMS Allingamite, the URC, and they're basically New Zealand treasure coins, so there you go. So next we move on to King Edward VII and the early Georges. Alright, thanks for watching this long video.